Hey, it's not Thursday at 4, it's Friday at 5, but this still is NLL Lacrosse Talk with Candid, Frank, and of course, Gary Groob. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now here on NL Lacrosse Talk, as I said, our co-host Gary Groob, and of course our very special guest, world champion Buffalo Bandits defenseman and father to be, and not necessarily in that order as of importance, Matt Spanger. Matt, welcome to the program.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, we always welcome great lacrosse players. We welcome even bad lacrosse players. We enjoy having lacrosse players, people who love the game of lacrosse. And you know, the first question we always ask, Matt, and I'm sure everybody knows before they come on now, is how did you pick up the stick?
I think like my dad played when he was younger, but then also the neighborhood that I grew up in Toronto, the Toronto Beaches. It's a big lacrosse neighborhood, so pretty much like everyone kind of plays at some point when you're younger, when you're peanut running around, and a lot of people end up sticking with it. So I think it was just like it was really big in the neighborhood. So I was kind of drawn toward it, and then it ended up sticking, something I really liked and something I was good at. So,
well, I used to do the play-by-play of the Beaches lacrosse team.
There we go. No way.
That's back in the 90s. You probably weren't born yet.
That was I was probably running around at the box down on the beach at that point.
Yeah. The iceless outdoor rink.
Yeah, that's where all the house league was played out of there. So you go down there and you play pretty much right on the beach every during the week, which was great.
When I was doing it, we were doing it at Birchmount Arena and the Birchmount Arena, and the viewers here know the story. At that time in the 90s, they had a really terrible leaky roof. So on when we do the game the day before, if it rained the day before and was sunny the next day, the rain would come through the roof and start pouring down on a sunny day, and all the guys would be running around. All the Beaches team players would be running around with buckets everywhere, all over. It was hilarious. And back then, they didn't play on a carpet; they played on the concrete.
Yeah. We've come a long way.
Yeah,
since the leaky roof.
And I had another story too. We had Paul on.
Yeah, he's gonna have to tell you. Go ahead and tell it.
Well, they used to be on that catwalk when they were doing the play-by-play. Well, guys like Paul used to use it as target practice.
Yeah.
So these guys are dodging balls while they're trying to call the plays. But
the good old days of lacrosse, didn't we say that?
Yeah.
And there's nothing like figuring out a new challenge to help with your shooting skills. Hit the announcer. See how that works. I got out of the way, so unfortunately I saw it coming. And I was much younger then, so I had a lot more good reaction time. So it was interesting. It was a lot of fun. We did that for quite a few years. A lot of great lacrosse players had a chance to see them and got to know the game from the grassroots level. The Beaches were and are still one of the most popular communities for lacrosse, even though maybe it gets drowned out a little bit because of the metro area.
Now, normally we do the This Is Your Life thing, and we start from the beginning, work our way forward. But since you just won a championship, why don't we go through all that while it's fresh? And I want to talk about, actually, I want to go back the year previous and the year you guys didn't win what you should have been. And that feeling and how that drove you this year through all the adversity, because the team didn't have it easy this year. They had plenty of injuries, plenty of one-goal games, all kinds of different things to pull on character.
Yeah, I think like the year that we lost, well, I mean, the first year that we lost was pretty bad, but then the second year that we lost in the finals as well to Colorado, I think that I don't know really why. I think it stung even more the second time around. I think it's because we were so close, like going into a game 3 as well. Like we knew it was right there for the taking, and we didn't get the job done. So yeah, that definitely left a left a pretty long lasting burn on a lot of the guys, and it was something that like I don't think anyone really forgot. Over the summer, like even when some guys are playing summer ball, all that kind of stuff. Like I think it's something that really stuck with everyone, and the whole season almost seemed like a little bit of a redemption show of like, hey, can we actually get it done this year type feeling. And I think this year, yeah, I think Gary, you kind of touched on it a little bit, was like it was a little bit different this year than the previous year. Like we kind of like walked through the season a little bit, like didn't really have any like big tests or anything. Like obviously we lost some games, but like it didn't really feel like we were hit with like a ton of adversity. And then this past season, it like you name it, it happened, right? Like we had a ton of injuries, like guys stepping in. Some of the roles that guys played were incredible, right? Like you had guys, like Brad McCulley stepping in and playing such a huge role, like guys like that. And when we had a lot of injuries, and he stayed in the lineup pretty much the entire rest of the season just because he stepped up and played such a great part. But yeah, a lot of the games that we were winning, like even though we finished with a 14-4 record, like you said it, a lot of 1-goal games, like a couple overtime games here and there that one bounce kind of goes the other way. So I think we definitely grew as a team throughout the season, and like being faced with a lot of that adversity, and we really got it going at the right time, going into playoffs and having some pretty big wins over Rochester and Toronto, and then and managed to get the job done this time, which I think we definitely needed just to for the city, right? I think the city had seen us come so close, and I think they needed it just as bad as we did. So really, really, really happy that we got it done.
Sure. With all the adversity that city had gone through over the last number of years, yeah, that you could feel it in the building. Yeah, even sitting in the press box from the anthems onward, we couldn't hear ourselves think.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine on the field how loud it was, but it was insane. But I think the difference between the year previous or the years previous and this year was character, not characters. It was a cocky bunch the year earlier, and it was almost expected that that trophy is ours. And surprise, karma's got a way of hitting. This year it was all business, and no matter who was out, and wow, you had Kluche out, you had Byrne out, you had Tehoka out, you had McKay out for a while. Everywhere got hit. And again, you're talking next man up mentality, and guys stepped up like McCulley. Ethan O'Connor was just unbelievable. You were spectacular. Adler at faceoffs and scoring those goals here and there. Absolutely, everybody was pinpoint. So yeah, it's a character thing from the whole team, from JT down.
Yeah, I think like the year before, I know you mentioned like the cockiness a little bit. I think we did have a little bit of like a
wasn't the shirt party?
Yeah, it's a party. Yeah. We did have a little bit of extra swagger, I would say, that year, and I don't think it really did. I don't think it did bad things for us to have that a little bit of extra swagger in our step, but at the same time, like I definitely think that like this season was a little bit different. It was kind of all business. Like we were still obviously looking to have a little bit of a chip on our shoulder, and like I think that's the main difference. Was like, hey, this happens last year, and like we need to change something. And I still think we had a little swagger going in, but it was like, hey, it's not necessarily our top guys who are coming in and producing every single night. Like it's like everyone's kind of pulling the rope in the same direction. It was like no egos. Like if you're out, the next guy's up, and he's going to do what he has to do to make it happen. I just need to plug my computer in, guys. If you don't mind, sorry.
I would define it differently. I think a little bit, and I would define it as. Oh, got feedback coming.
I can hear you.
Go ahead. He's just going to plug in his computer for a second.
Yeah. Okay. So you can still hear us, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I would define it a little differently. I think it's more or less you had a season where things went well, and as you said, I agree 100% that because everything goes well, you get in the playoffs, you forget how hard you have to work. Then the next year, you feel really like you missed a great opportunity. So you're a little more heightened up. And then what happens with the injuries, they don't matter because the motivation that you have to be better and get back there, the rest of the team got an opportunity. The guys that weren't the frontline guys had a chance to show what they could do. I can't believe anything builds confidence more than a 1A becoming a 1 or a 2A, becoming a 1A. In other words, you have the guys sliding up the ladder of importance on the team and they all end up with a great result. That's quite the confidence builder. And it's almost a real great reality check where you go, hey, hold on a second here. There's a lot of us that can play here. And I'm going to say something a little extra. The guys who are the 1 guys know they're 1A guys that could go out there, and the coach knows it too. And it also keeps you honest. And sometimes players need that little edge of honesty to get over the top. That's the way what I saw, what I think is important, especially with athletes.
Yeah, I think it just gave us a sense of confidence too. Like even going into the finals, and we find out that Josh isn't playing, for instance, right? Like I
Right.
think a lot of situations, like you can see the comments on all social media, everyone's kind of pressing the panic button, and almost ruling us out at some point. Like, hey, what are we going to do without Josh? But like our dressing room, like we're pretty confident with the situation. If like one person's going to be out, obviously Josh is a massive contributor, and he showed it when he came back in game 3 and shot the lights out. But yeah, like in that room, there just like wasn't really any panic because again, we'd been through
Been
this
there and done
situation.
that.
Yeah, we'd been through
Been
this
there and done.
situation all
All
season,
year
right?
long,
So
yeah.
it's we switched the lineup up, and we're confident with whoever's in that we can kind of get the job done. So yeah, it was
Right.
definitely pretty special year. So
Yeah, and you had a chance to play with those guys. Like when you're changing everything up, there's that learning curve that when you play with guys, it's one thing to practice, it's another to play the game. So it was a blessing in disguise. The injuries set you up for a really good playoff run, and then when the injuries happened, yeah, so what?
yeah, and it happened to like most people, mostly everyone. Like minus Josh. Obviously, we're back for that game 1 too, right? So it all kind of came together at the right time, um, and then like the game 3, obviously Josh comes back, and everyone, we have a full lineup in, right? Like the best possible lineup that we can put in, and the rest is kind of history. So
And the rest of the players
Absolutely.
who aren't part of that regular lineup, they feel like they made a contribution to it's a great experience. I see that kind of situation when you overcome adversity and what it takes to overcome it really gives a lot of people a lot of I guess you could say pride in their contribution. It's being one of the red aces or the guys that only wear practice jerseys when the championship's won. It's not as important then as it is when you actually played a part. You don't necessarily have to be central, but if you're out there sweating with the guys, working hard with the guys, getting bruises with the guys, the championship means more to you.
oh yeah, and honestly, like I'm kind of in the mentality too. Like I've been in the practice roster spot before. Like most guys have been at some point, right? And
Mhm.
like it's pretty tough to travel all the time and like practice, and like the guys who like weren't getting in our lineup a lot of times, like no one was practicing harder than those guys too. And like it's not only them just like fighting for a spot in the starting roster, but it's like it's pushing us. It's like it's making everyone who is in the lineup a better player. Like those guys earned everything. Like they earned it's
And they
that
had
that
a turn too. Justin
exactly.
Martin played a big role in some of the playoff games. Robinson, both Dylan and Justin, both played parts. So yeah, everybody had a part in this that they can say that there was a tangible asset to the team.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. It was especially like late in the like game, late in the finals. It was kind of like, hey, everyone, you have to have your best game of your life, kind of thing, right? And I think that's kind of like game 3 especially, I think that's kind of how it went. Like everyone was just on, and we knew we had to bring it if we wanted to bring
And
that
scoring
back.
a goal quickly kind of, eased up the tension a little bit in the house as well as on the team, because guys didn't grip the sticks so hard, because you're coming off not a great performance in game 2 where you guys lost discipline. And in game 3, it was business as usual. Discipline, didn't get tricked into any of the stupid penalties, and didn't give their power play a chance to do what both you guys power plays did all series long.
Yeah, I think like a game like that too, Colorado power play, obviously our power play as well. Like if you can stay out of the box and kind of drag the other team into taking penalties, like you're gonna win. Like Colorado's power play was lights out against us, and ours was the same, right? There's too much talent on those power play 1 units that, like if you're in penalty trouble, then you don't really stand a chance against a lot of these teams, right? It's all across the league. Even guys are so good, they move the ball so well, and again can shoot it into a soup can. So it's impressive.
I want to go back a couple of weeks before the playoffs, and a game that happened in Hamilton. I know it's not a great one, but you guys took it on the chin. You lost 18-7. Was this a come to Jesus moment? Because from that point on, you guys were unstoppable. Yeah, you got all your guys back 2 weeks later, but you guys as a team were unflappable and unstoppable from that point onward. So was there something that was like, wow, we can't have that again. Let's focus and get on with things?
Yeah, I think it was definitely a little bit of a hit to the ego, right? Like we're obviously one of the top teams in the league at that point, and Toronto is as well. So I think everybody is expecting a close game, like obviously a well fought, like tough game, but I don't think anyone was expecting that type of shellacking that we got that night. So it's hard to even pinpoint like why that happened, even like just like a little bit of maybe lack of preparation on our part, but I think it definitely was a bit of a wake up call. Again, kind of going back to what we were saying before with getting hit with that adversity. Like that was a thing. Like, hey, like we bleed red just like everybody else, and nothing is going to be handed to us if we show up with that attitude. Like we're gonna get beat like this, and like a lot of teams in the league will be able to beat us like this if we show up just expecting to win and not kind of work for it. But so I think it definitely was a wake up call that it was just like everything that we're gonna get is gonna be earned. And there's no two ways about that. Like you just need to show up ready to earn it every single night, kind of thing. And the fact that it was Toronto that handed us that was even more of a wake up call, because our history with them obviously isn't the greatest, and I think that kind of added to it. Given the chippiness at the end of that one. So,
well, yeah, and then 2 weeks later, of course, you get to Hoka back. Now, there's a bulldozer if I've ever seen one. I've watched him since junior, and even playing with the Arrows, man, he has such great hands. Like there's never a cheapy goal that ever came out of his stick. But the size of him, nobody's moving him. He's taking care of all the defensive structures in front, which open things up for Dane, open things up for Josh. It's amazing how much one man can do.
Yeah, he's a special guy. Like I think you kind of nailed it. Like he obviously has like incredible hands, can shoot the ball, can score on his own, but like he can go out there and not even touch the ball and make such an impact. Like even something as simple as just getting into the middle, making their defense collapse, all that kind of stuff. Like I think in that Toronto game, like obviously I'm not the one to critique any offense here, just because I don't spend much time up there. But like when we're not getting to the middle and like breaking defenses down, like on a guy like Rosie, you're shooting from the outside. Obviously he's a big guy, comes out far, like not much of an angle to shoot at. So if you're not getting into the middle, making him move side to side, then we don't really stand a chance. And the whole could just, breaking down those defenses, getting into the spaces, into like, getting into the dirty areas where not a lot of guys want to go, just opens everything up for everyone else. And then obviously, when he gets in tight, he's definitely a guy that I'd put my money on putting the ball in the net as well.
Sure. Now, I want to talk also a little bit about the defensive structure that you guys had, because it was really one of the most unique things I'd seen in a long time. And sitting up in the press box and watching you guys actually do it, and from a distance, it was pretty spectacular. That you had your two bottom defensemen come down almost equal to where Vince was, so you almost had three goalies there. But you guys were agile enough to get out to block the lanes, shooting and passing lanes, and disrupt things. While the upper guys are going to sit there and worry about the cutters and the other things. So, was that Chuggers by design, or
I think that was mostly just like communicating with Vino, right? Like I think one thing, especially like being able to play with Vino, as opposed to other goalies I've played with in the past, is like you really have to shape your defense around like the style of your goalie, right? Like I think that's actually something that when you're younger, you kind of play the same defense all the time, like. But when you get into this high level, like I think you really need to shape that defense around like where your goalie wants shots from, where they don't want shots from, and
right.
and all that, right? So we want to make sure that he's seeing the shots that he likes, and so we like I think this is another thing that just shows a lot of character of the team. Like right, those bottom guys on the on the power play are willing to stand there and just get peppered with shots for the good of the team. That's a big character thing. Like we had a couple guys who probably blocked like 5 or 6 shots a game. So yeah, it was more so just like communicating as a team, like, hey, what can we do to stop these shots coming in from the top at a good angle, stop the shots coming in from like the sides where obviously it's a pretty good shot for a lot of these guys, and our defense on the bottom of the power, or the man down rather, were just willing to put their body on the line, which speaks volumes about them. So.
Right. And you have a guy like Ian McKay who will play forward if you need him forward. He'll play defense if you need him defensive. He'll be transition. I'm sure if you gave him Matt's equipment, he'll sit there and play goal for a game if he had to.
He's he's an absolute Swiss Army knife. I've never seen a guy like that before. Like he, even in the field game too, like you see him midfield, you see him D midi, O midi, like long stick midi. Like the guy can really do it all. He's just a lacrosse player. And I think honestly, probably one of the bigger snubs I've seen for transition player of the year. I think he probably earned that this year.
Agree.
But yeah, he's great. Like again, he'll come down, play an excellent game on defense, and then he'll go up on offense and have like 3 or 4 goal game. It's just it's pretty impressive to say the least. So
definitely. Now, as for you, what kind of thing did you look at before the season started to improve your game towards getting to the championship? Did you achieve it?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think for me, I'm not sure if there was like a particular, skill or anything that I was looking to change. I think it was more so just like I wanted to be, a reliable defenseman, right? Like, and I think that comes down to just limiting the mistakes that you make, and just being in the right place at the right time. So I think a lot of it was more so just like mental, like working on the game, positioning, footwork, all that kind of stuff, and just overall being a reliable defenseman down there. Like again, we have a lot of guys who can push the ball in transition. I think pretty much all of our defense are have the ability to push the ball in transition. So kind of takes a little bit of the pressure off. Like when I first came into the league, like I was the guy who was like breaking every single time. Like growing up, I was always someone who was running every single time. And like when you play with guys like Ian McKay, Priolo, Weiser, all that, like everyone has the ability to do that. So you can really just focus on being a good defender and not making mistakes, and making guys uncomfortable. So
consistency. You were looking. It sounds like you were looking to be consistent, dependable, always playing the same way.
For sure, and just like kind of being present in the moment all the time, right? Like when you're playing into those big moments, it's easy to get sucked into the crowd. Like this is a big moment, but just being present and being a difference maker out there.
Now, one of the things that I had heard before when we were talking about Dan Dawson and a few other guys is they had to learn about their size and to be able to play like somebody who's 6'4", 6'6". You play like you're 6'4". You finish your checks, you do all the things right back in by the net, and then are able to move the ball up the floor. Is that something that you had to practice, or is that just something that came naturally?
I think it's well, like I was a late bloomer. Like I don't think I hit 6 foot till maybe like grade 11 ish. So I was kind of a late bloomer. So maybe it took a little bit of time to fill in and actually be able to fill in, finish those checks effectively. So, but yeah, I don't think it was something I really like had to learn. I think it was just something I always kind of like used to my advantage. Like playing defense, obviously, like your reach is something that is good, like closing out on guys, finishing your checks, getting like slashes on guys and stuff like that. So I don't think it was really anything that I had to like learn how to do. It was more so just like realizing like how I can use my body effectively and close some of those gaps on guys. So
right. Yeah, because I think it was Ed Como was saying, yeah, he had to tell Dawson to stop playing like he's 5'8", he's 6'6". I know.
Yeah.
We saw what happened when he realized he was 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah, for sure. He's one of those guys too, where it's like he definitely uses his size. Like when you see him out there, setting big seals, like he'll come down and seal like 3 guys at one time, and you're like, holy smokes, this guy's massive. How am I supposed to get around this? So yeah, I guess it definitely worked with him. So
let's talk a bit about Banditland in its own right. Now you come in there in 2019, and you knew of it obviously growing up in Toronto.
Yeah,
but now you're on the right side of it where they're cheering you.
Yeah. Honestly, it's the craziest place ever. So it's the fans are amazing. Again, like playing in New England, like we had some really good fans. Like again, it was a great place to play. Obviously, like that's where I met Mike, Muffler Mike, and his wife, and so there was a really good fan base there. But then like we would come into Banditland and we're like, oh man, like we gotta play these guys. Like this is gonna be brutal. And then being on the other side of it and having everyone cheer for you, like it was crazy. Like the fans just accept you like with open arms right away as long they like your game. And it's just every single game they show up and like they're just the energy in the building is contagious. Like it's so fun to play there. So like the fans are so special to us because it's like it just makes it all worth it, right? Like I think one thing JT always mentions, like whenever he feels that we might not be giving 110% effort, is he's like, if you look up in that crowd, like these people paid their hard-earned money to come watch you play, and like for you to come out and not give a full effort is almost disrespectful kind of thing. So
Right.
It fuels the team, and it's crazy. You guys have been there. It's so loud in there. You can barely hear yourself think. So
I've been going there since they were in the Memorial Odd.
Yeah.
That was crazy. This is a little bit more civilized.
Yeah.
That was insane out then.
Oh man, yeah, they're the best. They're the best. I'm sure if there were folding tables around, people would be jumping through it just like the Bills game. So
yeah, right, you spent as much time in Buffalo as you did in New England. I'd like to hear a little bit about your experience in New England and your first couple of years in lacrosse and in the NLL. What were some of the things that you had to learn, the obvious things to you that you learned immediately?
Yeah, I think so. For me coming in, I think it was like the mental aspect of the game and just like being able to think as fast as my feet could move, if that makes sense. Like I always kind of prided myself, like growing up, being athletic and being in good shape, being able to run fast again, like run the floor. And I think like coming into the NLL, like I was like, okay, I'm in top shape. I'm able to keep up with a lot of these guys. Like I'm doing well on fitness tests, all that kind of stuff. But then during the game is so much faster, and guys think the game way faster than I do. So I think that was a pretty big wake up call. Is like I'm out of breath because I'm running around so much when I shouldn't be doing this. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. So
absolutely. For everybody that comes in, they come in as like they're stars where they were before. So a lot of the natural ability takes over, and the need to do the other part becomes clear when you're among all the other great players from where they've been, right?
Yeah. So it was a little bit of an adjustment. Like I started out on the active roster, kind of bounced back and forth, like practice to active. And then I think in my second year in New England, I started to find my footing a little bit. Ended up getting a calf injury, and I was out for, I think, like 5 or 6 games, or maybe even less than that. But kind of set me back a little bit. And then when I did end up getting traded to Buffalo, like that's kind of where I think I definitely found my footing, and was able to kind of like stamp myself in there as a guy who's going to be in the lineup every single night. So it did take a little bit of a time to adjust, and it was all just like positioning, like being able to think the game as fast as everyone else around me. And then like since then, I think it's still just like a constant adjustment, because guys are so good and everyone's just getting better, right? And so creative and everything. So we're just trying to keep up back there.
What was your initial thought when they traded you from New England to Buffalo?
Yeah, it was kind of it obviously sucks a little bit. Like it's a weird feeling, because you're in a little bit of a mix of emotions. Like for me, obviously it's a lot better of a situation for me in like logistic wise. Like I'm just west of Toronto in Etobicoke, so travel for me is a lot better. Obviously, like I'm starting a family, so it's going to be it's a lot better for me logistic wise. But then it's like, hey, this team didn't want me anymore, so they traded me. So you kind of have that little bit of emotion as well. But then I think for me, like the overall excitement like crept in, because I was like, oh damn, like that place that I would go and get yelled at, and like, it was so loud. Like now I get to go in there and they're going to be cheering for me, kind of thing. It's like I get to go to this infamous place and play on the right side of the this crowd cheering. So I think it was kind of a little bit of a mix of emotions, like, but I think overall it's like, hey, I'm excited to go in there and just get this started here. So
you were on the cusp of greatness in both places, because New England was on the cusp of probably winning if COVID didn't shut them down. But at that stage, when you were there, was already ramping up. And then you go to Buffalo, where 2019 they make it to the finals. 2021 they make it to the final. Here we are, 23. We're talking about your championship. So. So you were able to get the best of both worlds. The coaching wise, having Glenn Clark as your coach, and Veltman, and also at that point was your coach, and you've had a lot of dealings with Veltman, because when you did CLAX, he was the commissioner, and he was one of the players you had said previously that you looked up to growing up. So how much were you able to get out of Jim towards your craft?
Yeah, he was again growing up in Toronto. Like I went to Rock games pretty frequently, and like looked up to that was my team growing up, right? Like I still have some signed stuff from them that will stay in the drawer probably till I retire, because I don't think I want to put that up on my wall or anything yet. But no, it was honestly special. I was really excited to be coached by V and Clarky. Just learn so much. Like those guys are so smart. I know, like Veltman was like our D coach at the time, so spent a lot of time with him. And like he just thinks the game different. Like he was such a dynamic player when he played. Like again, playing offense, playing defense, power play, PK. Like the guy really did it all. He's just an extremely smart guy. Like he would just point stuff out in my game that I didn't even realize I was doing, or like tweak things here and there. Again, that helped me kind of like help my brain kind of catch up to my feet a little bit, because it doesn't matter if you can run, like if you're not thinking the game at a high level, then you're kind of useless out there. So I think he really helped adapt that, and was just such a smart lacrosse mind. It was great to learn from him. So
well, his game was loose balls and cause turnovers, and that's your game. So I'm assuming that you picked up quite a bit being a student of his.
Yeah. So he's named Scoop for a reason, I guess, right? So, but I think a lot of that, it just comes down to him being smart, right? Like body position, all that kind of stuff. Like he was able to get all those loose balls because he was out thinking guys, and just a step ahead of everyone. Just being the smart player that he is.
Right, and then you roll over into JT.
Yeah.
And what kind of difference is it in the philosophy of being with him? One of the greatest player of all time, point wise, just him on the field, period. And now as a coach.
Yeah, I think he definitely he walks with a little bit of a swagger, with a little bit of like a presence or like an aura around him a
Mhm.
little bit sometimes. But he is like super down to earth and nice, such a nice guy. He again spends a little bit more time with the offense than the defense, but
Mhm.
you can tell again, like you can kind of smell the wood burning sometimes when you see him watching a situation. Like you can tell he's thinking a step ahead of most people. And even just some of the stuff that he points out on tape, like he'll walk us through some game tape and stuff and point some stuff out on the D end. And like he just knows the game in and out. And I guess you don't get to the position that he's in without knowing both sides of the floor.
Mhm.
So it's crazy being, it's like a little bit of like a pinch me moment sometimes getting coached by some of these guys who
Sure.
were so incredible at playing the game, and now they're kind of like taking our game to the next level, just passing all that knowledge along. So
Yeah,
Absolutely.
then understanding after being coached by them why they were so good, and I guess that impacts on you and why you're saying today, I need my head to keep up with my feet,
yeah, no,
right?
exactly, yeah, exactly. And I think that's another thing is like a guy like JT who played for, I don't know how many, 20 some odd seasons, was it 22
Mhm.
seasons maybe, like
Sure it wasn't 40 or 50 because his reputation seems more than
yeah.
years.
Well,
Exactly.
1,700 points, man. That's a
So I don't think you get to that point without being able to think the game so much at such a faster pace than everyone. Because obviously, like when you get up to like your late 30s, 40, early 40s, like you kind of lose a step physically.
Mhm.
But he was still like thinking the game so much higher than everybody else, and like he's always in the right spot. He jumps in shooting lines with us sometimes and still shoots the lights out,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think it's just that mental aspect of like being in the right place at the right time. Like that's how you get to play for so many years. So
Yeah.
Boy, it sounds like you're getting ready to be that kind of player down the road. I mean, you've only been in the league 4 years, but do you see how to extend your career and how important it is for you to figure out? Because when you talk about your head as well, and keeping up with your feet,
mhm.
it also gets to the point. This is me giving you advice. Wow.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Eventually, what happens is your feet slow down a little bit and your head has to work that much faster. I'm sure that's one of the lessons you've learned from them as well, that you got in the bank to think about once you get older, preparing for that. Not that I'm trying to tell you to think about retirement, but I think you understand what I'm asking, what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. So I think like I definitely get that, and I think that's something that kind of comes with time, right? Like I was listening to, I can't remember what I was listening to a podcast recently. I think it may have been like a hockey one, but they
Mhm.
were saying that like a person's peak or like an NHL player's peak is around like 30 or sorry like 28 or 29 because like their physical and their mental kind of meet right here, and like that's the peak, right? Whereas like when you come into the league, your physical's here and your mental's here, and then by the time you're like late 20s, they both kind of match up perfectly, and that's where you hit your peak kind of thing. So I'm hoping that that's the case. We'll
Well,
see. I think
but
I
your
might be.
brain can carry you.
Yeah,
There's a saying, deceptive speed, right? And that has to do with basically thinking the game, when to move. It's not just about how fast you move; it's when you move.
yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. So I think that's something that obviously you work on, and you like watching game tape and just getting smarter and stuff like that is stuff that really, like, a guy like Vino, for instance, like watches more game tape than I've seen anybody watch, and like that's why
Mhm.
he's even though he's still probably in better shape than everybody else, but the mental game, like it's like, hey, like that's how you kind of get your edge, right? So
Yeah. I love watching him run out of the tunnel. He goes 900 miles an hour, full goalie equipment.
yeah, that's so funny.
Always great to see that. But
Yeah.
you had mentioned that you'd spent time practice rosters and this and that, and earlier in your career you spent time with CLAX, you spent time with ALL, which leads me to my next question about developmental. Having the places like the Arena Lacrosse League, how important is that to a development of a up and coming player?
It's everything, right? Like I think something that we were missing for a while was like there was nowhere to play if you're on the practice roster in the winter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're practicing, once a week. If like some teams kind of only practice on the the Friday before a Saturday game.
Yeah.
Some places are lucky enough to have midweek practices like we are, like Toronto. I know some other teams are as well.
Mm-hmm.
But like you're either practicing once a week or you're not practicing at all when you're on the practice roster. If there's no CLAX, if there's no ALL, so
Right.
it's like it's everything, right? Like it's you get to keep your stick in your hand. You get to you get to stay in shape. You get to again. There's a lot of good players in those leagues too, right? Like it's kind of a mixed bag in that there's some guys who are on practice rosters trying to crack an NLL roster. There's some guys who have played in the NLL for X amount of years and are
Yeah.
still playing competitive. And then there's still some junior players playing winter lacrosse and stuff. So just to like stay in shape and to keep your stick in your hand, you're also probably getting more reps than you would in the NLL as well. So honestly, I would encourage everybody to play ALL if you're on a practice roster. It's so important because you're not getting better if you're not playing, right? Just play as much
Right.
as you possibly can.
And also, I think, and stop me if I'm wrong, is it teaches a lot of the guys how to become professionals, not just on the floor, but how to handle themselves. So when they do make it up there, they stay up there. Because I think the Arena Lacrosse League's had something like 20 or 25 players go up and stay up over the last few years. It's been that good developmentally, and the coaching is on par. The rule set is so it's not a big change going from one game to the other. So midway through, with injuries, with other things, that it's there for the NLL also to be able to pick and choose who they need.
Yeah, it's again, I think it does kind of train you, just because there are, again, you're playing with guys who are trying to make it. You're playing with guys who have made it to the NLL and they're whatever back down to for the end of their career kind of thing. So it's like you're just learning it, and that's the biggest thing, is like continue to play, continue to learn. I think the best thing that ever happened was the rules changing. Like CLAX was a little bit different. Obviously with offense defense kind of switch. So I think the best thing that ever happened was kind of switching it back to the regular rules with the ALL. So yeah, it's honestly a great league. I think I would definitely like to see, I don't know what you guys think about this. I'd be curious to get your guys opinions on it, but even if we went into more of like a farm system, like an AHL system, I think that would be probably good to actually like develop people a little bit more. Because you can keep people within an organization a little bit better, right? So I think I'd like to see that in the future.
I agree too, because we talked about it actually on the other show about that being the farm system and making it like that, to have their own teams and their own developmental, which would be spectacular, because you take a look at how many more teams and how many more players would have access. Because just opening up the West now, how many guys couldn't play, period, if they didn't make a team and make a roster after summer ball. That's it until the next spring. Now they're able to play all winter.
Yeah,
I'm for it. The one thing that you'd lose is something I was going to ask you before you said that, and that is playing in different leagues like lacrosse players do. You normally athletes and teams, a player plays at his youth and moves up, plays with guys that eventually end up in the same league as them, the NLL, but it's always in the rear view mirror. But in lacrosse, it's all through the front windshield. In other words, you play against guys, and then the off season you're playing with guys that you were playing against, and against guys that you were playing with, which is a peculiar situation with lacrosse, which that farm system would eliminate a bit of that. So not that I'm against it, but I'm just saying that would be a tiny downside. What's it like, and how do you get, like, have there been any players that you've had aha moments and go, wow, I didn't realize he was like that? You know what I mean? Like where you really get to know somebody when they're on your team as opposed to against them. And the same is true when you're playing against them after they're on their team. You have a whole different perspective of what they look like. Is that true to me? I wouldn't know, because that's your experience. I'd like to know how you feel about that and what your experience in that regard.
Yeah, so it's definitely a unique sport. I wouldn't even say unique, because like I think other sports are like that as well. Like hockey, for instance, where a lot of, like, if you grow up in Toronto playing hockey, high level hockey, like you kind of know everybody, right? I think the lacrosse world's just a lot smaller because obviously there's not as many people playing the sport. So like when we go on the floor against any team, for instance, like you probably know half the guys personally. So it's a little bit strange. And I think the biggest thing is like when you play against players who are rough or are, like enforcers, like tough guys or agitators who are trying to get under your skin, and then you're on their team and they're your favorite guy, kind of thing, right? I think that's kind of the situation where it's like, so I think that's just like an aha moment, is like you realize that like you need to find a reason to like not like a guy sometimes, even though maybe you were roommates a couple years ago or like stuff like that. So
that's
I think
the thing. That's the thing that I have trouble wrapping my head around, because that's the tough part, I think, where
yeah, it's tricky. I think one guy I'll mention is Sean Evans playing with and against him is like he's a guy like I played against a little bit, and then like was on his team in New England, and he was like he's a team guy, right? Like he'll if you whatever if you're in a scrum and someone like sucker punches you, like Shawnee's the first guy to be in there to help you out, kind of thing. But then you'll go and play against him in the summer when you're playing against Peterborough, and like next thing you know, someone's whacking you on the leg or something. You look around and it's Shawnee. Like he's just a gamer who wants to win at all costs. So it's like when he's on your team, you're like, well, this guy's the best, right? Like he's doing everything he can to win, sticking up for me and helping me out. And then when you're on the other side of it, as long as you're wearing a different jersey than him, like nobody's safe, So you gotta find that mentality and just it's all about the guys in your locker room at the end of the day.
No, but when you play the off season with a guy who you played against in the NLL and won a championship, and now you're teammates, I mean, there's all these things that I don't think you get like in hockey, because the only way you get to play with guys that like in that situation is if they get traded. Lacrosse players literally every summer trade themselves. They decide where they're going to play and who they're going to play with. And sometimes we've learned here on this show that players like other players and go, where are you playing? Oh, I'm going to play there. Oh, why we should get together and play on that team. And then there becomes this thing that is a bit like basketball, where, players figure out who they're going to play with more than being told who they're going to play with, which is a luxury that you have in lacrosse that you don't have in many other sports.
Yeah, I think you see that a lot more in summer ball, right? Where there's it's a little bit less regulated. So whatever, if one team's hosting the Mann Cup, it's like, okay, like let's chat and see who we can get to kind of load up to win this thing. So I think that's something you definitely see it in summer ball, which is a little bit unique. But yeah, a lot like basketball, right? Like you see, the Warriors putting together super teams.
Yeah, they talk. The players talk. They have some say in where they're going to play. More than many of the other sports.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
Right. That's what I like about it. And when we watch games, it's funny to watch guys that played against each other play with each other, because we think you should hate each other. What is this? What's going on here? Why are they liking each other? Did you see that he patted him on the back when he scored a goal? I thought he might give him a shot in the shoulder with the stick. Nope. We forget how much the game is so personal at the moment. Like you said, being in the moment's very important.
Absolutely.
Just before we finish up here, I just want to talk about, since we just finished up with the World Field Lacrosse Championships, you had a brief thing they were playing in Western. Being a perennial box guy, was it a hard transition to play field university level?
Not really. Like I had played field growing up a little bit. Like I didn't really start until like high school. So I played high school lacrosse. Like I played field lacrosse in the beaches as well. So I'd played for probably like 5 or 6 years before going to university. But the league in Canada, like it's not as serious, or at least when I was there, it wasn't as serious as going to NCAA and playing Division I or anything like that. It was a lot of box players like playing field lacrosse, right? So it was a little bit different, but it wasn't really an odd transition, other than just playing with guys who are like 21, 22, all the way up to like late 20s when you're 18, kind of thing. But yeah, honestly, it wasn't too bad. It was more so just like a lot of fun to play play at college. So
What's your take on sixes?
I think I would like it if I played it, but I don't know. I think it definitely speeds the game up. It's probably a little bit more fun for people to watch. I know sometimes, when there's no shot clock in field, it can be a little bit of a snooze fest for the fans. Like I saw a lot of people commenting on the world stuff about that.
Yep.
I feel bad for the goalies. Don't know why anyone would want to be a goalie in a game of sixes, but I definitely like the traditional game a little bit more than that. I think there's a little bit more strategy to it than the sixes, but I think that would probably be good for me if I played field though. So
that's the sacrifice we're going to have to make the game, more accessible to the rest of the world.
Yeah. If that's what it is, then
once we get them, we can actually teach them the rest of the real game. And
it was impressive to see all the teams at Worlds, though. I did like to see that. I like to see a lot of the teams looked really good. Like, you had Japan, England, Jamaica was crazy. My buddy Marcus Minichello was out there killing it out there. So it was awesome to see some of those.
I was on the sidelines taking pictures, getting burnt. So yeah. I really want to thank you for taking the time with us, because we're out of time now. And again, congratulations on the championship. Congratulations on soon to become a father. That's spectacular. And I wish you all the best in the upcoming years to come, Banditland and everywhere else.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was great chatting with you guys.
Love it. Any excuse to talk lacrosse. Thanks for doing this, Matt.
All right. Thanks so much, guys.
All right, for Gary Groob and Matt Spanger, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching NLL Lacrosse Talk, seen live Thursday at 4 p.m. Today was a special Friday at 5. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Lacrosse Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out spanglishworld.ca. And don't forget to check out the YouTube channel, Candid Frank 1030.